What's up, guys, and welcome back to Bilingual Friends English. Today, we're going to talk about learning a different kind of vocabulary. We're going to talk about learning phrasal verbs.
Yes. So we've been talking about the three things you need to learn a language. We've talked about vocabulary, we've talked about grammar, and we've talked about paralanguage. Now, your grammar and your vocabulary are what we tend to focus on in traditional methods because they're the most easy to measure. They're the easiest to learn on your own, but you might have proper grammar and you might have proper vocabulary and not be understood. And the thing you're probably missing is paralanguage. We talked about that last video. This video, we're going to give you guys a little bit more of a solid foundation for it. We've talked about how acceptable grammar is more important than proper grammar, right? Because you can use subject, verb, object completely perfectly, but have the totally wrong vocabulary in there. Like if you said something like berries swallow swimming, that's technically correct, but it's not acceptable. The English dictionary has more than 170,000 words. The average American, we use about 20,000 words. And in daily life, we really only use about 10,000 of those. And that's why many of you know that to be considered fluent in English, you need to know about 10,000 words. So the question is, how do you know which of those words in which patterns and applied to which situations should you know to be considered fluent in English? That's a really hard thing. Take your 10,000 words and try to figure out which of the 170,000 in the dictionary that you need to know in order to not just pass tests, but to communicate in a way that we're going to understand you. That's a lot. That is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. So today, this video is going to hopefully help you out a little bit with something very difficult.
So today, we're going to talk about phrasal verbs. They're really, really good and useful for everyday English, but they're really hard to grasp. And that's because they're composed of a verb and an adverb or preposition, and they go together. And when you combine them together, they end up meaning something than if you just look at both of those parts individually. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk specific examples below that you guys can do, but one thing you got to be careful of, actually three things you got to be careful of when learning phrasal verbs. You guys need to be careful that a lot of these phrasal verbs only apply in certain situations.
True.
That's why you got to learn phrasal verbs and their situations. And that's really good to have on an actual flashcard because a lot of times we just learn the verbs or just learn the prepositions and we don't really learn that combining them makes it different in a different situation.
Right.
But number two is that a lot of times the verbs and the prepositions are very, very, very specific. So it's not just any verb and any preposition.
Sure.
The prepositions don't always do the same thing to the verb. And so it's really specific to which preposition you use, which verb you use. And so number three is you can often split the phrasal verb and put something in between it. And so it can be really difficult to really understand. So drop the kids off as opposed to drop off the kids.
Yes. And to make it even more confusing, a lot of phrasal verbs over time have become nouns as well. So like a drop off. A drop off is a cliff. Like a cliff where the ground drops off into whatever is below. And so you have to be very careful. And that's why these are so tricky, is because they wear a lot of hats. And honestly, a lot of times they are very situational. We're going to do some very general ones that are very, very common, but we're also going to do some more that are more specific to certain situations.
Right.
So first, we're going to do 32 phrasal verbs. And then we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can practice them. So let's get into it.
So first phrasal verb is pick up, and the second one is drop off. They kind of go hand in hand, but when you can say pick up the kids, and that can either mean you physically pick them up, or it could mean you pick them up from something like school. So I pick up the kids. Today, I'm going to pick up the kids. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up the kids at 3.
So, or you can use drop off in a very similar way where you say, oh, I've got a lot on my plate this morning. Can you drop off the kids at school today?
Yes. And we also use this not just with like kids, for example. We can also use it with any object that you can physically pick up. So you can drop off a package at the post office, but you could also say drop the package off at the post office. right? You can say, I'm going to go pick up the groceries, but you can also see that honestly, thanks to COVID, we have this service where you can do a pickup, which has become a noun. A pickup. It means you order your groceries online, you go to the store, and they put it in the car for you. This is a pickup.
Another one is drive through, right? You can drive through something, which is kind of just a preposition, but it's actually, that's become a noun where you go through the drive through.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
Number 3 and 4 is going to be to turn on and turn off. Now, this one's interesting because a lot of you have learned this early on. I think that was literally the first phrasal we ever learned in Chinese. Is turn on the light, turn off the light. But it's really interesting that this usually only applies to electronics. You can also turn on the radio, turn off the radio, turn on the TV, turn off the TV. Anything that's really electronic. You can also say this for music. Turn on the music, turn on my tunes. You can turn it off. You can do all those things.
Right.
Okay. So another set that's very closely related is to turn up or turn down. Okay. So you turn up the volume, you turn down the volume. If you have lights that change, you would say turn up the lights or turn down the lights. So also very closely connected.
Yeah. So I can turn on my phone. I can turn off my phone. I can turn up the volume on my phone. I can turn down the volume on my phone.
Turn up the heat or turn down the air. Yeah. Right. So that's another one for you.
So number 5 and 6 for you guys is to go up and to go down, which is really interesting that we use the same verb for both of those. Go up and go down.
Yeah.
Sometimes we use different ones like come, go, and come, but we also do say I went up the hill and I went down the hill, or I have to go up to there and I have to go down from there.
Now, this one's very important because this opens the door for you to hear a lot of other verb types. So because up is and down are prepositions, we can also make them adverbs by saying upstairs and downstairs. We can say uphill, downhill, uptown, downtown, all kinds of things like this. So that opens up the door. That is the foundation to a lot of other phrasal verbs.
Number 7 and 8 for you guys is get into and get out of. So what are some situations that we can use those two?
You could say get into a car, but you cannot say get into a motorcycle because you sit on the motorcycle. You would say get on the motorcycle. So if it's something that you get into, you can say into. However, we do say get onto the bus. We don't say get into a bus. We say get onto the bus.
Another one, it's not just like spatially physical things around you, though, because it can also be a little bit more emotional things. Like I can say get into an argument.
Right, like a situation, like getting into a situation or into a context, right?
Yeah, because again, it still kind of has the idea of it's kind of around you, it's happening, it's a situation, but it just feels a little different when you're thinking of a physical room versus kind of a situation. But get into can normally apply to both of those. Get into and get out of. Number 9 and number 10 for you guys is to build up or to tear down. So to build up means that you're encouraging something.
It's like, Josh, you look so good today.
Thanks. So building up doesn't actually necessarily mean a physical structure. It can, but most of the time it's actually talking about a relationship.
Yes.
That you're building a person up, not necessarily building up a building.
Exactly.
Or especially because our son is around 3 years old and he sometimes doesn't use his words very well. And so I have to talk to him and say, James, you need to use your words to not tear down somebody, but to build them up.
Yep. And notice that the object went in the middle there. Build them up.
So another one is that applies specifically to food and specifically to ordering food is order in or take out.
Yeah. So if we feel really lazy, I can look at Josh and say, Josh, you want to order in? You want to order in pizza? But I could also just cut it off there. I could just say, do you want to order in tonight? Right? Meaning order in would be a phrasal verb in that situation, but we would both understand what we're meaning. We're meaning the next meal or we're meaning dinner, whatever we're talking about. So this happens in English a lot and can be very confusing. We can drop what we're talking about in order to not sound redundant to each other in the same situation.
But What's the difference between order in and takeout? Because they kind of sound a little similar.
You got to be really careful with it, actually, because takeout is another word that has become a noun. To get takeout, right? Or you can take out your food, right? So you can order takeout, you can order in, you can go pick up takeout, you can take out takeout.
You can also use takeout for like taking something out of, like, let's say a box.
Yeah.
So takeout is really tricky.
You could also take somebody out in a game.
Right? Yeah. Takeout could also mean to kill somebody, which is very violent, but it can also, it normally has kind of the idea of like an assassination. Or
like a video game.
Like a video game.
That's how we would normally use it. Like, take them out, you know?
So again, these phrasal verbs, they can apply in different situations. Even sometimes the same phrasal verb can mean different things.
Yes.
So if you're talking about murdering somebody, you can use takeout. But if you're talking about taking a toy out of a box, you can also use takeout. Or if you're talking about buying food from a restaurant
and having it delivered to you, you could say takeout. I'm going to buy some takeout.
So there's a lot of things that go with it, and you got to keep those things in your mind, which is why if it was up to us, we would have 3 different cards for that same word, even though that's not necessarily intuitive for a lot of our students. They want one word, and that's the only word like that.
Tiny, tiny text on all the things it can mean.
Right. And what we encourage you guys to do is to have one verbal phrase on a flashcard, and on the other side, just have one meaning that it can go to, one scenario. So if I had takeout, I would have 3 cards for takeout.
So another word that we can do is to roll up or roll down. And this most commonly applies to rolling up your window or to roll down the window. But you can also use it for like clothing or cloth items. You can roll up a towel, you can roll up some clothes, you can roll up a blanket. All of those things can also roll up. It's just that act of rolling something up or rolling it out or rolling it down. Oh, rolling it out would be for clothing.
Well, back in the day, with windows specifically, we would say roll up the window because it was an actual lever that we would roll around like this and the window would go up. So now we keep the same phrasal verb, but the switch is a little different now. So instead of rolling up your window, you just press a button.
For some people.
So the next few are actually very difficult. So we have 3 words that are 3 phrasal verbs that are all similar, but they all mean very different things. So the first one is give in, give up, and give off.
Yes.
A lot of gives.
A lot of gives. Okay, so to give up, a lot of you might already know this one, but to give up is to just give up on something. To you just don't want to do it anymore. It's too frustrating, so you're just done with it. So you say, I give up. Right?
Or maybe you're playing a game and you say, I'm not going to win this game. I really hate this game.
It's a waste of time.
Waste of time. I give up, and you flip the table or something like that. So that's give up. But give in is something a little different.
It's like, hey, you want to buy this? Next day, hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this?
Fine, I'll buy it. I give in. And so give in kind of means to allow something to happen. So you're pushing back against something, and then finally you just let go and you just give into it.
Yeah, to give in.
The third one is give off.
Yeah.
And that one is a really, really useful one. Not a very common one that we've heard our students use, but give off means to kind of just
give an impression,
or to give an impression on other people, on something.
Right. But you can also give off joy. You can give off frustration. You can give off a lot of emotive things.
Yeah. Lots of emotion.
Lots of emotion usually. And in normal English now, there's a lot of people in America that will say vibes. And so they give off vibes, or he has a bad vibe. He gives off a bad vibe or something like that.
Or a creepy vibe or something like that. It's the feeling that you give to other people or a feeling that other people give to you. That's kind of what give off means. So the next one is to dive in to something. And this could easily mean 2 very different things. One is to actually physically dive into like a pool of water or something like that.
Or, I mean, you can dive in by let's get started. It could be let's dive in.
Right.
All right. Let's get into the lesson. Let's get into the task. Right. And you get in there. The next one is listen up. Okay. This is one that your intonation is going to be very important when you say it. Because if you say, hey, listen up. Okay. If you say that, like, that can be very rude. Or you could just say it in a very nice way, like, listen up, kids. Or you could be very mean with it too.
Right. And so, but listen up means to pay attention.
It's a command, almost purely a command. But you cannot say it to an animal. You cannot tell animals to listen up. It's definitely something that we specifically use for people,
Yeah.
which is very interesting, I think. From a linguist standpoint, that's very interesting to me.
The next two are quiet down and calm down.
Very synonymous in some situations, but not in others.
Yeah, so like quiet down would be like if you're in a library, or if my son's in the library and he's being a rowdy
3-year-old.
toddler and running around, I would say, James, you need to quiet down. You need to quiet down, which means to just speak a little softer.
Hush.
Yeah.
Hush. Yeah. But then you also have to calm down. So if you're getting very anxious or you're starting to get very nervous
Or frustrated.
or you're starting to get way too excited, maybe I would say calm down. Notice that calm down would not work very well if you just shouted it at somebody or if you're very frustrated when you say it.
Right. And that's that intonation that we talked about a while back,
Yeah.
where a lot of these, they have to go with each other.
To write down. Write down is something that we do all the time. It can be take notes is what it really means. It's like take note of this phone number. Instead of saying that, would just be a little weird. We'd say write that down. Or write down this phone number. So notice the object can switch very easily and fluidly here as well. But if I want to know your phone number, I might write it down.
The next two are put up and put away. And we use these all the time, especially because we have little kids and children. And so they often have to put away their toys or to put up their toys. Both of these phrasal words can mean a lot of the same thing.
A lot of the same thing. They're synonymous most of the time.
Most of the time. And so for you guys, especially, I mean, some of you might have kids, but even if you don't have kids, when you clean the house, we put stuff away. We put away things.
Well, also, there's another meaning to put up is put up a Christmas tree or put up lights. You know, put up some kind of decoration. I put up pictures today. You can say that, but you can't say that with put away. Away is very specifically away from sight, out of sight. So it's out of mind, right? So very similar idea.
All right. So the last three that we're going to teach you guys today is kind of all relates to trash, what you would do with trash. The first one is throw away. Second one is take out. Third one is clean out. So a lot of these have similar meanings, but kind of just flesh that out for me. Use some examples that I can really understand.
Okay, so I know we already said take out before. Take out has a lot of meanings, but we take out the trash. This does not mean take some trash and put it in the trash can. I don't take out the trash that way. It means take the bin, the whole bag of trash, take it outside. Okay, so you take out the trash in this way.
Yeah.
To throw away, if you have a piece of trash, you would throw the trash away or throw away the trash, right? If you throw away the paper, you throw away an old toy, you throw away a broken thing. All of those things are to throw away. And then when it's full, when the bag is full, you take out the trash.
So what about clean out?
Clean out would be, we have this thing called spring cleaning. And so when it starts getting warm outside, you open up the windows and the doors and you let your house or your living space air out. And then you clean out all the stuff you don't want. Clean out means you go through and you purge the house of everything you don't want. So things that have built up, clothes that don't fit you anymore, you just don't wear. All of those things is cleaning out. And maybe that's not all necessarily trash. Maybe it's just stuff that you don't want anymore. But this is called to clean out. So
we have throw away, we have take out the trash, and then we have clean out the house.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we're going to end this video with three tips for you guys so you can practice phrasal verbs on a regular basis.
The first one is more like a piece of advice. It is important to realize that not every verb can be turned into a phrasal verb, and not every phrasal verb should be used in every situation. Okay. For example, to open up. Okay, this phrase can mean to open up your heart to somebody and to open up about your emotions. It could also be to open up a box or to open up a gift. However, I would not say to Josh, hey, you want to go open up that box? I'm not going to really say that. Open up is not something I'm going to use in every situation. If the main verb suffices, will you open that box? Use just the main verb.
Right.
But some phrasal verbs are designed to specific situations, like to put someone on trial, to put on trial. You can't say to put trial. That doesn't work. You have to say to put on trial. It is absolutely necessary in that sentence that you have to put on. Okay. So these, unfortunately, you just have to learn them that way. You just have to learn that that's the case, and you have to reinforce that by actually hearing it.
And so that one's a really hard one for you guys because it's so situational. But again, that's why we use proper flashcards, not just any flashcards. Try to use good words on there.
Tip number 2 is that you should practice these everything that you're doing.
Yeah, use it in daily life as you go about your day. So don't just remember them, but also use them, especially out loud.
Yeah, speak just what you're doing. Like turn on the light, turn off the light, turn on the computer, turn off the computer. Those are easy. It sounds super easy, but you need to get it through your head until you're not translating in your mind through your own language anymore.
Right. Tip number 3 that we're going to end with today is that you need to be able to practice these phrasal verbs. And one of the best ways that we've found is to play a game called Simon Says, or just tell them to your kids and actually make them do something. So Simon Says is really easy. You just say a command. Normally they're phrasal verbs. Say the phrasal verb and then you go do that. Or then the other person has to go do that.
Yeah.
So I would say, Amber, Simon says turn on the light. And she would have to go turn it on.
If Simon says, I have to do it. But if Simon doesn't say it, then I don't. You can look it up online. It's a fun game. But doing them with phrasals is a great way to interact with your kids, practice English, and make them get up and have some fun with them at the same time.
Right. So that's it for today. Those were our 32 phrasal verbs for you guys. And remember to use them regularly so they'll stick and be able to remember them and to recall them a lot easier, especially on tests. So if you guys liked this video, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment, especially down below if there's some more phrasal verbs that you guys can think of that are really useful that maybe we didn't mention in this video.
There is a listening quiz in the description just to make sure that you are listening well. Answer it, put the answers in the comments below. Would love to check you and see how well you did. All right.
We'll catch you guys on the next one.